Jeff and the Rabbi. As you see behind us, we've decided to just let everybody know how good, kind people we are. We just all want to coexist. So I was thinking, and this is why we put this up behind us. When you drive to work there, and you see that nice lady in front of you in the carpool. She's driving the carpool or whatever. Right. With that beautiful bumper sticker on the back, coexist. I mean, she's got to be good, perfect. Right. And I'm thinking to myself, guy must be a bad guy because I'm not thinking about coexisting as much. You got the Jewish star next to the Islam symbol there. I mean, what could be better than that? Right. So the way I look at things when we try, like for the last 7 years, to build this beautiful, diverse, pluralistic society, you would think everything would be great because we are all coexisting together, black, white, and then obviously since we've been doing that, there haven't been any race relation problems, I assume, because we're coexisting now. The issue that I have here is I think we're living in a historical cliche. I mean, this happens over and over again. You get into a society here like, oh, okay, let's all coexist. Let's take our society today. Okay, there's millions of people crossing the border, but it's okay. Why can't they come into the border? And I call them illegal aliens. I find out I'm only allowed to call them undocumented workers. What could go wrong with millions of people crossing the border? Well, lots of people are losing their jobs. The prisons are now full to unbelievable high percents of these illegal aliens. Crimes that are committing by illegal aliens are huge. But, other than that, nothing. Okay, so homosexuals want to get married. That's okay, fine. Homosexuals get married. What's wrong with that? Well, now we have to change the definition of marriage for everybody else. So marriage is no longer between a man and a woman. It's between anything we want. Down the road, it could be dog, cat, bird, mouse. I don't know, they'd be cross species. A lot of things could be happening. I mean, nothing wrong with that. Muslims. As our president says, how can we blame the actions of a few extremists, not Muslims, but a few extremists for an entire religion? So Germany and Europe, they let millions of these refugees in. What could be wrong with that? How they are coexisting, except the amount of women that are getting raped in Europe has now skyrocketed. Murders, everything goes wrong. The guy we have Muslims killing people in Orlando and 9/11 and everywhere you go in Israel. But again, I don't see any common theme.
I don't know why you're talking about Orlando. How do you think they're coexisting in Saudi Arabia? How's coexistence working over there?
It's not working well.
Or any other Arab country, for that matter.
It works for a bit.
How's coexistence go along over there? Like, how does it tolerate? They tolerate people with other lifestyles, and
Well, they do after they stone the ones and get them out of the way that don't coexist. But it's the concept of how brilliant is that we need to just get along. Everybody needs to be the same. We all need to get together. Right. It doesn't work. And the bottom line, who are the bad guys? Who gets blamed when this all happens? When we start the coexistence side, well, those horrible Israelis, those Jews, they're not coexisting with those people that want to kill them next door. And then what happens when you have so much coexistence? You go to exactly what you'd expect. We find somebody that'll come out of nowhere who'll say, wait a minute, we can't take this anymore. And it'll be a nationalistic guy that'll yell and scream. It's happened all the time through history. And we go the other way.
1 o'clock, Cleveland. 1 o'clock in Cleveland. What's the topic of what's the main talking point and the agenda of the entire Republican convention? Law and order, which understandably so, because people are looking for law and order. Well, if that's the whole platform's law and order, they'll end up getting a candidate who will stand for law and order. Right. And of course, what happens when people really need law and order. There's suspension of civil liberties, and talk about gun control. There's always push for gun control. Once they start shooting police, I think that whole gun control discussion is going to start changing, and people are going to say, hey, we can't let people run around with machine guns killing police. Now all of a sudden there's going to be a different attitude about gun control, which I think will happen.
But this is how it works. It never ends up good. Never ends up good with coexisting diversity, pluralism, and it doesn't work.
Right. But we have to understand, taking the historical view.
Right.
This is important because, all these historians always say this, those who don't study history are condemned to repeat it and all that, The only thing about that statement is it's true, right? That is true over and over and over again. You find this happens, there's this rise and fall of empires. Always. And the United States is certainly one of them. We had a pretty good empire rolling along for a while.
Good run.
And working our way up, and became international for a while with the policeman of the world, the power of the world, our way of life. We wanted to export it. We believed in it. It was important. Our culture, our belief system, and all that. And we did. And then at a certain point, we started to say, well, who said that we're really right? And do we really want to export it? And do we especially want to export it if that means that we got to send kids like all the way halfway around the world to die? So maybe we'll just take care of ourselves, and maybe actually we'll start to turn inward. Mm-hmm. And then once we start to turn inward, we start to say, well, what about me? What about my personal expression? What about my way of being? What about and how the society taking advantage of me? And the society was, I just read a history book, one of the more contemporary history books, history textbook, and it was fascinating to compare how the past has changed.
Right.
It was really, really interesting to see how the past.
I love to see how history changes.
Right.
It's amazing.
It is absolutely amazing because now there's an emphasis on what was the status of women and minorities when they were conquering the West, or what was the status of women and minorities, and as we were expanding this American empire, and so on and so forth.
Right.
So it's really, really interesting, and we find that when societies start to turn inward, they don't have the drive, they don't have that sense of we are right. Matter of fact, they don't have a sense of we, because there is no we anymore. And the country starts to fragment, or the empire starts to fragment, and everyone starts to pull in their own direction. Right. So the different colors or races, ethnicities, genders, everyone starts to pulling in their own direction, and there is no we. So what is this country about? And now, well, it's about, says the president, our primary value. He just said this the other day in his statement about talking about the attacks in Nice, that we're going to stand for what we stand for, which is pluralism. Well, wow. If we stand for, and he said it's pluralism, that's the number, he was listing the values of America, pluralism. Well, pluralism is very interesting because pluralism really means that there is no we.
That's pretty much what it says, yeah.
Because it's all plural, meaning that it's all about finding the me and not the we. And therefore, every group starts to tug in its own direction. And after a while, every group starts to say, I can't get any protection in this society. I'm going to circle my wagons, hang out with my folks, secede or hide out or go my own way because everyone else is against me. And the whole thing unravels. It really unravels. It starts at the edges where, your international reach starts to erode, whether that be you start to lose your influence in the Middle East, and you lose your influence in South China Sea, and you lose your influence in Europe, and you lose your, that's one hand. On the other hand, internally, everyone's tugging. Black lives matter, white lives matter, transgender lives matter. Everyone's life matters, but when you're doing that, you're really saying there is no we anymore.
Right.
It's not we don't matter, our country doesn't matter.
Well, and I think probably a lot of people would agree, just in the last 7 years or so, you can see this happening. You can see this happening in schools where kids get in trouble for wearing an American flag T-shirt because where there's... You go into universities now, and there are safe zones for certain races or genders or whatever. You can't cross because you'll offend the people of that race, and they'll feel threatened. It's like it really is happening in quite a short period of time right now. I mean, honestly, before the last 7 years, race relations were fine. If you check polling back from 7, 8 years ago, the issue of racism was way down on the bottom of the list. Now it's right up the top. Things change when you try to coexist.
I don't know if you'll ask the group that was on the bottom how bad it was, but maybe it was. I don't know. But I will say an interesting thing, and I hate to interject some Torah here.
Please.
But, so there is an absolute about having government and having like a king or a monarch. When you have government and you have good government, you have to give up something. You have to give up a lot of the individual to the greater good. Right. Most people like that because it means that I, as part of the greater good, achieve things way, way, way beyond what I ever could achieve for myself. So therefore, I like it. And I give up a lot of things. People will sacrifice their lives. They give their children. They will send them off to fight wars and to die for the greater good, or to work for a cause, even though I might just be toiling here on the low level. And maybe I'm not even going to be reaping all the rewards, but I still believe in it. I still believe in what I'm getting because the country as a whole has prospered. Now, I might be on the bottom end of that scale, but the country as a whole has prospered. This is, the people came to Samuel the prophet.
Okay.
And they said to Samuel, we want a king. All the other nations have a king. We want a king.
Right.
Now, this is a very interesting question because up until then, they were living in a tribal system. The 12 tribes. But the 12 tribes, they were tribes, meaning, the people of the Reubenites, like they hung out with the Reubenites, they believed in the Reubenites, and they pretty much took care of their own business. And sometimes, if the Shimonites were in trouble, they would sometimes come to their aid. But sometimes they didn't come to their aid. Or sometimes certain tribes would help out the other tribe or fight against an enemy from outside, but other tribes wouldn't. We read these stories in the book of Judges where some of the tribes would come and some wouldn't and all that. And the tribes got together and said, you know what? We need a unifier.
Right.
We need one figure that's going to bring us all together. And instead of being the Reubens and the Shimons and the Levis, we need to be Israel. Israel, writ big, so writ large. So we need to be one country. So Samuel, he got up and he blasted them. Now he felt that this was a personal affront because he was their leader up until now. And he felt he was being rejected. But he got up and he gave a speech and he said, you know what happens with the king? When the king comes along and he's marching with his troops, and the shortest distance between A and B is across your farm, they just march right smack across your farm. What happens to your crop? You just donated it to the king. Right? Basically, so the king's army could step on it. Right? Because the king's army goes the short route. The king doesn't go around. And when the king needs more maids to work in the royal palace, you know who goes? Your daughter.
Right.
Shows up and he said, we need more maids, and your daughter, she's going. And what can you say about it? Not too much. Okay? It's not such a good system. He said, there's a tremendous amount of sacrifice in this system. You have to give a lot to the system. When he was all done, the people said, yeah, but that's what we want. That is what we want. So you have to understand, in order to have a society, and a prosperous society, and an orderly society, and in order to be able to feel proud of the society as a whole, which is something that doesn't exist now, in order to be able to feel proud of the society as a whole, people have to sacrifice a lot for that.
No doubt about it.
And it's that you got to give up a lot. Sometimes you even have to give your life for it if that's what it calls for. And it's not an equal distribution, and it's not always just for everybody. Of course, you hope that you have a just king, and he's as just as possibly could be, but it's going to mean a lot of sacrifice for the greater good.
Right.
But once you stop sacrificing for the greater good, then the next thing, all of a sudden you find all this long list of these self-centered type of pursuits.
Everybody's got a grievance.
Everyone's got a grievance. Everyone's got to express their own sexuality in their own way. Everyone's got to find their own gender. This is a problem. The lady was laughing. The lady was talking at a hospital. So there's a new law was just passed in order to make hospitals more gender friendly towards transgenders.
Please.
And they've been finding that a lot of the hospitals, there are doctors that they don't even call people by the pronoun that they want.
Ouch. I'm out.
Right. It's horrible. So they pass laws. So this lady was saying, we have to invest a lot because the computers work in a binary system. It's like ones and twos.
Right.
So they either male and female. So they're trying to figure out a way to get it to accommodate a third gender. It's a big problem. They're working on it, but they're going to come up with it. But of course, when they get a third, there'll have to be a fourth and a fifth and a sixth and a seventh. And as a matter of fact, people have to even discover genders and forms.
I've been
of
working
expression.
on that myself, about 3 or 4 different ones that I'm bringing up next week at the meeting.
Well, if all you can do, if that is what you have, then you don't have a society, because there isn't enough room to go around for everyone to grab all the blanket, to cover them.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So if everyone is demanding, I need you to respect my gender and my gender and my gender and my personal preference and my expression and my mode and my ethnicity and my color, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's what happens when you have a society that is not focused and does not have a we orientation.
And also can add quite a lot of complications at the mikvah.
I didn't want to go there.
I just thought I'd throw that in, because that could be more problems, but anyway.
Right. So we see in the Torah, it's very interesting, the Torah talks about the tribes.
Right.
One time, and we mentioned this before, there is one time when the Torah does a census according to tribes.
Yep.
There is a first time the Torah does a census, it just does a census of all the people. Now, of course, it comes out to be the same number. Like if you do a census of the United States, or if you do a census by state, it should turn out to be the same number, right? So they did the number according to tribe. First they did the number according to the total amount of people, and then they did it according to tribe. And of course the two numbers came out matching, which makes perfect sense. So the question is, well, why? I mean, like if you want a census, what do we care? Like how many people are in each given tribe? It doesn't really matter. So there's a great rabbi, Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky. He passed away in the 1980s. He said that the first time around, before there was a tabernacle, the first time they did the census, they did the census of the people as a whole, because there was no tabernacle. And he says they were afraid to recognize the tribes, the tribal identities. Because without a tabernacle as a unifying force, recognizing tribal identities would be so divisive that the people could have just broken apart. Later on, they built a tabernacle, and they arrayed each tribe around the tabernacle. Now there's a centrality, and now there's a focus. When you have a central focus, then you can actually look at your own identity, how you contribute to the whole.
To the center of the whole thing, right.
Right. So what we have lost is the center. And therefore everyone is pulling off in every direction into their own little tribe, and even creating new tribes as fast as we can speak. And that is destructive. What people don't realize is that when there is one central focus, you actually find yourself more. I heard this Rabbi Emmanuel Feldman was rabbi here in Atlanta for many, many, many years. He said that when he grew up, he had a Jewish education, which was not very popular in his time. He went to a Jewish school. Most of his contemporaries went to the regular public school. So he said that he has found that he got this very strong Jewish identity, and he actually feels very strongly as an American, and he feels his sense of a Jew as an American.
Right.
Whereas other people never really got figured out like who they are as a Jew, because he got it because he was in this Jewish schooling system and they helped develop his sense of himself as a Jew. He believes he's a better American because he has a heightened sense of himself as a Jew. Whereas people who never figured out who they are as a Jew, they don't really know who they are even as Americans, because they don't know really who they are.
Well, and I really can agree with that, because I've sometimes felt, if you look around, people, religious Jews, they have a born-in cause. They know who they are, they know where they're coming from, and I think because of that, they have a cause and they get through life with a cause, and I think they're centered. Where you take people who are not religious, you see a lot of people then they save the whales, save the little fish there, because they have no cause, they have no center, they have nothing that started them. So you find them, they branch out into these, searching for these things, and they're lost in the middle of nothing, trying to save a little fish in California somewhere. And I think that has a lot to do with it. You don't ever get to be a part of the You don't have a real cause in life. You don't have a center in your life.
Right. Now, once upon a time, let's take Rome, for example. Rome really believed in itself. The Romans said, you know what? We have the best way of life, right? We've got this really good language. We got really good science. We make roads. We have running water.
Yep.
You know, we have a lot of really, really good things. The rest of the world should have all of this stuff. And they went out marching around the world. And if you wanted to take the Roman way, good. If not, they stomped on you until you did take the Roman way, because they said, we know what's best for you, and they set up what's called the Roman Empire. You know, the problem was, along the way, of course, they had to use a lot of people. You know, those aqueducts didn't just get built by volunteers. No. They rounded up a lot of people, and they said, you work here, and you know, and you die here, but you know, it'll build the aqueduct. We'll get this road, and people will be able to communicate and travel at 100 miles in a day, which is pretty amazing. You know, they could do 100 miles a day, was just outstanding.
Right.
But a lot of people died. A lot of people gave their lives, even gave their lives unwillingly for the Roman Empire. But at a certain point, the Romans had sort of done it, accomplished it all, and then they said, well, now they started turning inward. No more goal, no more promoting the Roman. As a matter of fact, you know, they started on the fringes, they're getting attacked. They said, well, why do we really need to be dying all the way out there for?
Very similar situation.
It all crumbled, and it's all gone. So, well, we really need to find our way, and this is, you know, when they talk about leadership, I don't know about any of the current people who are promoting themselves as the future leaders of the country.
Right.
You know, I am not even going to bother to make
problem there as well.
not going to bother to make any comments on any of the candidates, but actually, leadership will need to articulate values that are not just pluralistic, but something positive that we stand for. See, pluralism means I let you do what you want to do. But we have to have a common goal that unites people towards building something that is good and positive.
Right.
And if we believe in something, we have to be able to stand up for it. And if we don't, of course, we will pull ourselves apart. It won't fall. Ultimately, it'll be attacked by enemies and it'll collapse. But really, the collapse will have taken place before that, because it'll be ripped apart internally. And that's what's happening now.
If you don't have one common, as you say, one common goal, one common direction, you know, and everybody's in it for themselves, that's pretty much the end of society.
Right. And this is what's happening. And of course, you know, once they start shooting at the police, once your police are not safe in the streets, so then that's the whole thing's falling apart.
Well,
of course,
let's say by the police, both sides need to step back.
Yeah, right. Right. This morning, Loretta Lynch said that it was a horrible thing that this guy did, and it's horrible because it's not helping us accomplish our goals. You know, I thought it was just horrible because they killed these guys. I thought that was horrible.
That's bad enough.
I thought that was just horrible. But she said because it's not helping us accomplish our goals, which means, like, you know, it's putting the movement back. This is
pretty much what she said. Yeah. But it's a scary situation because, again, that's why I started off saying it's like a historical cliche, because it's happened before, and the result is always the same. Someone's going to come along from the other side, which may be happening now, and go crazy the other way, and it's going to, who knows what's...
Yeah, ultimately, people are going to throw their hands up and say, hey, look, we need law and order. I mean, this is what happened in the Weimar Republic in Germany.
Yep,
it was chaos in the streets, and this guy came along, and he said, yeah, we'll make the country great again, and we'll get law and order, and we'll make the country great again. And a lot of stuff that was going on that a lot of people go, hey, this is really crazy, which meant a lot of the cabaret scene, and you know, there are a lot of people in the country that are saying, like, you know, when I don't even know how many genders there are, forget about, like, you know, I can't show respect. I don't even know some of these genders. Like, people are saying, I think things have gone crazy. And when people have that sense that things have gone crazy, they'll turn to someone who will reinstall order regardless of the price, and
people close their eyes. At least he's strong. He's got it together. He's got to make Germany great again, make America great again, and it pretty much.
And that can get to be scary because then all these pluralistic people are really going to find out that they're going to lose their pluralism. Now we as Jews have always wanted. This brings us back to the Mishnah that we spoke about last week in Pirkei Avos. It says, always pray for the well-being of the government, of the kingdom. Right. Because were it not for that, people would swallow each other up alive. We are always better off under a kingdom which at least institutes some form of government, even if that government is prejudicial towards us, but at least there exists a form of government, because otherwise what you have is everyone trying to grab as much as they can for themselves, and then everyone just swallowing everyone else.
There has to be rules in society.
Yeah.
Yes, and those rules are going to, maybe if someone's going to feel that they're getting neglected in those rules or getting abused by those rules, but if there's not rules, you have what's going on now.
Right. The alternative is nobody's safe. It doesn't matter what gender you are. It doesn't matter what your ethnicity is. It doesn't matter what. Nobody's going to feel safe to walk out in the street. And at that point, people are going to scream out. They're going to say, we need safety. And, I just dread how what form that answer to that will come from. Right. Yeah.
I mean, it was think me alone, the problems I'm having right now with closet space. This whole gender thing.
Yeah.
I just can't decide. And I'm running out of closet space.
Well, you just let all the people that are in your closet still not. Get out of the closet,
I'm trying to get them out of here.
Get out of the closet. I need more space.
It's a tough thing for me.
Yeah.
It is. But I agree with you totally. Good point. Very good point. So we'll see where this.
So we got to pray. We got to pray for the government. But I would modify it. I said we should pray that we get government.
Right now,
we need government, and that's really.
And it's not always the thing that I get. But it's not always that short answer that you think it's going to be. You need somebody to come in here who's strong. I got a lot of friends who say that about some of the candidates today. At least this person's strong. He'll take care of it.
Yeah.
Sometimes that works out well, and sometimes, most of the times,
yeah,
from a historical perspective, that does not.
But I do want to say one thing, and I think that this would let us. In a certain way, rest easy and get sleep at night.
Okay, good.
And that is that we believe that there is a phrase that says, Leiv Sarim Umalachim, the hearts of officers and kings is in the hands of God.
All right.
Ultimately, we believe that everybody has free will, except the kings and the officers. Meaning, once you're in those positions, God uses you as a pawn. And ultimately, God is going to make them do what He wants them to do. So, in truth, yes, if you can see a clear-cut, what looks to you to be a clear-cut benefit, then you try to promote that, your candidate versus the other candidate. But for many of us who are looking at the situation and go like, huh? Like, what should I do? Ultimately, God will know what to do, and it'll all work out.
Good. So just in case, I'll keep. I have the clothes in my closet just to wherever God's going. I'm going to keep everything in the closet just in case.
Okay.
I'm staying in the closet. That's it. All right. Well, we will see you next week with some more interesting stuff.
God willing. Maybe we'll have some good to talk about.
Good.